Hello friends, and welcome back to a new video. Today I will be doing the Beauty and the Beast book tag. I was kindly tagged by the wonderful Miss Thomas from Book Talks with Miss Thomas, and I'll have her channel linked below as well as her video. I highly recommend going and watching her video. I loved hearing her answers for each of the questions, and it's a pretty self-explanatory book tag based on the title. The whole point is to answer questions that are linked to different songs and lines from Beauty and the Beast. But of course it's a book tag, so your answers have to be books. And I know it's very basic, but like many bookworms and like many other people, Beauty and the Beast is my favorite Disney movie. So this is a perfect tag. I was very excited when Miss Thomas tagged me in it, and I'm very much looking forward to answering the questions. And I would also love to hear your answers. So I will have the questions listed in the description box, and whether or not you have a channel, I would love to hear what your answers are for these questions. I believe the majority of the questions are based on lines from the animated movie from the 90s, but there are a few that I believe are from the newer film. So I didn't recognize a few of them, and I believe that's why. I also can't pick just one book to answer each question, so of course I have multiple books to answer them. So let's just go ahead and start off with the first question, which is, oh, what a guy, that Gaston, a villain that you can't help but love. The first book that I have to answer this question with is a no-brainer. It is the first book that popped in my mind when I read the question, and that is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. The character being Heathcliff, although the majority of these characters are very unlikable. But Heathcliff is something different. He's a very interesting character, but I just can't help but feel for him. And not in the sense that I would excuse what he does, how he acts and things like that, but I want to fix him, if that makes sense. So Heathcliff from Wuthering Heights is my first answer. And then I also thought of Lady Susan, who is the main character in a very short novella that Jane Austen wrote. And she is such an interesting villain. She's a very cunning woman, but she's so funny. And I can't help but find her extremely entertaining. So Lady Susan is my other answer. Question 2 is, here's where she meets Prince Charming, your one true pairing. I've got 5 books here. I could have picked more, but these are the 5 that really spoke to me when I first read the question. And so first we have Emma and Mr. Thornton from Emma. I mean, come on. It's Emma and Mr. Thornton. They are incredible. We also have Olivia and Ridley from To Whisper Her Name. They are 2 of my favorite love interests in any historical fiction. I adore them. And I don't know if it's a spoiler, but I mean, everyone knows, right? So if you don't know, skip ahead. But Anne and Gilbert, I mean, come on. Anne and Gilbert are the absolute best. They are just Anne and Gilbert. Same for this next book. I'm not sure if it would be a spoiler, but again, I'm just gonna go with it. From the Blue Castle, we have Valancy or Valancy. Everyone kind of says it differently, but Valancy and Barney, they are 2 of my favorites. Oh my gosh, I love them so much. And I have to mention Margaret and Mr. Thornton from North and South as well. Question 3 is, I want so much more than this provincial life, a character destined for greater things. For that, I am going with The Hidden Prince. There is a shepherd boy in this book, and without spoiling anything, without going into detail, he is raised by shepherds, and he has a very simple life, but let's just say that his life has a little bit of a different trajectory. No spoilers, we will leave it at that. I feel like I'm kind of rapid firing these questions. Should probably slow down a little. But the next question is, Be Our Guest, a book that made you hungry. And I had a hard time thinking of a book that mentions food a lot. And it's interesting because I am a foodie, and so I feel like that's something that I would notice more, but I just haven't read very many books that feature a lot of food and just the culinary arts in general. So I'm kind of cheating with my answer, but I'm going with the Little Women cookbook. It's a cookbook, so obviously it has a lot of food. Made me very hungry, but I went through this back in January, I believe, and it did make me quite hungry. So this was my initial answer, but I did think of another book, and that is Apple Cider Slaying by Julie Ann Lindsay. And the reason I thought of this was because of all of the apple cider recipes. And at the end of the book, there is a recipe for a potato salad and a cake. And there were a few moments throughout the book where I felt inspired to make a very autumnal drink and dish and everything, so it didn't quite make me hungry, but the drinks mentioned definitely made me want to go make a hot apple cider. Question number 5 is Beauty and the Beast, opposites attract. So pick obviously a couple where opposites attract. And I had a really hard time thinking of an answer for this one. Maybe Margaret and Mr. Thornton from North and South, maybe Lizzie and Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice. They definitely have some characteristics that are opposites, and you know, they have a little bit of opposites attract going on here. But besides them, and I feel like there are probably some really obvious answers that I'm just completely blanking on, but besides them, I couldn't really think of any until I remembered a contemporary romance that I read, and because I don't read very many, it did stick out, and that is Love in the Silver Lining by Tammy L. Gray. There is a bit of a love triangle going on in here, so I'm not going to say anything about who ends up with who or anything like that, but I do feel like this definitely features an opposites attract kind of romance, so I'm gonna go with that for my answer. But moving on, question 6 is, but there's something in him that wasn't there before, a character who is more than they seem. And without giving any spoilers, I'm going to say Barney from The Blue Castle. And that's all I'm going to say. If you read this book, you know exactly what I mean, but Barney is my answer. Question 7 is, I was innocent and certain, now I'm wiser but unsure, a book that changed you. Now, I don't have a copy of this book, but my initial answer in the first book that popped to mind was this children's version of The Pilgrim's Progress that I read as a kid. And my mom actually read it to my siblings and I when we were little, and that book definitely changed my life, changed my perspective on a lot of things. So if I can find, I guess, a cover image of the edition that we read, I just don't know where it went, but The Pilgrim's Progress, the children's abridged edition, and then of course A Voice in the Wind. I have to mention this book. I know I talk about it a lot, but I had to mention it. Question number 8 is Kill the Beast, a book you picked up because of the hype. And I don't normally pick up very hyped books until I feel like people whose reviews I trust, like they've said, yes, this book is worth the hype, or no, save yourselves the hassle, save yourselves the time, don't waste time reading this book. So if someone that I trust has read the book and they say it's worth the hype, then I'll read it. So for the most part, I just stay away from very hyped books, but there are a few that I have read recently that I picked up because of the hype. The first book is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I just don't know where my copy is, but that's one book. I also picked up Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. This one was also quite hyped, so picked that up because of the hype. And then a few years ago, I read Caraval because of the hype, and I'm very glad that I did so. Question 9 is, I'll never shake away the pain, a book or moment that always makes you cry. Based on the wording in this question, I feel like I have to answer with books that I've read at least twice, just because it says books that always make you cry, or like a moment that always makes you cry. So something that I've read multiple times and it kind of always, you know, it's like a tearjerker every time. And I have gotten more into rereading recently, so I definitely have some books that I can answer for that question. Now, I don't cry easily when I read. I do get teary-eyed sometimes, but I'm not a big crier with books. There are a few exceptions though. So we have A Voice in the Wind and An Echo in the Darkness, and I'm just gonna say the endings of both of these books. Sob fest, so there's that. And then this other book, there is one chapter in particular that makes me cry every single time, and that is Little Women, and the chapter is one involving Beth, and that is all I'm going to say. No spoilers. Beth, Little Women, one particular chapter, all the time. I sob all the time, so that is Little Women. Now, the 10th and final question is, how does a moment last forever? A book that you've loved since childhood. And I have two for this. The first one here is Little House in the Big Woods. And with this, I would say the entire Little House series, but this book in particular, I have adored since I was little, as well as Charlotte's Web. This is one of the first books I remember reading in school and falling in love with, and I just still adore it. So these are my two answers. I haven't reread many of my childhood books, like the books I've read as a kid, and a lot of them I don't even remember what they are, but these are two that have really stuck with me. So I love these so much, and they're just as precious reading them as an adult. And that is it for this tag. It was a bit of a shorter video, and I would love to hear your answers for it. If you haven't been tagged, consider yourselves tagged. I'm not going to tag anyone in particular, but that is it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Please leave your answers to the questions in the comments below if you would like, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!